It didn't make it any easier that my job was not very lenient with maternity leave, and since it hadn't really been a long time that I had been working with them, my maternity leave would be especially short. So, at the time, I weighed the pros against the cons and decided to quit my job. It was not a decision that I made alone. Everybody had been a part of it. James and his parents kept telling me that it would be the best decision in the long run, and I simply had to do it. James seemed pretty sure of everything and said that he would take care of the family. I didn't have to worry about the money, he would bring enough home, and all that I had to think about was raising our kid. My parents and my older brother also thought that it would be for the best if I quit my job and stayed at home because that's what my mother had done. Even though she had the choice of going back to work, she chose not to because this was a priority for her. I had a lot of pressure on me from both sides of the family, so I decided to quit when I was in my second trimester. Everything had been going well, and I had full faith in my husband that he would never let me down, which is why I left my flourishing career to be a stay-at-home mom. However, soon after my son was born, I realized that there was something strange about the way James had been behaving in the last few months of my pregnancy. I could never quite put my finger on it, but there was something off about his energy and everything. Sure, he seemed happy when our son was born, and I thought things would go back to normal. But instead, it started getting worse. He started being very irritable around me, and any time I would try to talk to him, he would just snap at me. The only time that he seemed happy and content with life was when he was playing with our son. Other than that, it always felt like he was very annoyed to be at home with me. He would spend long hours at work, and even on the weekends, he would consistently come up with some excuse not to spend time with me. I just couldn't understand what was going wrong, but I kept trying my best to make our marriage work because, unlike him, I loved him, and I didn't want to give up on us. This trend continued for about 2 years after my son was born. He would stay at work for way longer than he needed to, and even when he was at home, he wasn't really with me. I couldn't exactly complain about it because every time I would try to talk to him about it, he would just tell me that he was really tired from work and it was not an easy task for him to be the sole breadwinner for the household. That was really insulting for me because it wasn't as though I was not capable of bringing home money for myself. But I had to rely on him because he had promised me that he would make it easy on me. A couple of times, I even asked him if he would prefer for me to go back to work so then we could split all the expenses and he wouldn't have to take so much pressure. But he said that it was an insult to him and his capabilities. Besides, my in-laws would never approve of it, and we would be in for a really hard time with them if I went back to work. So, I continued to stay at home and raise my son, which is pretty much the only thing that brought me joy because James had changed, and he was no longer the man that I had married. It was only about a year ago that I found out that James had actually been having an affair with one of his coworkers. It had been majorly difficult for me to find out about because, honestly, I had been kind of suspicious about it for a long time. I had even snooped through his phone and laptop a couple of times when he was asleep, but I found nothing. I knew all his passwords because he wrote them down in his notepad, but even that didn't help. It almost felt like he had nothing to hide, and I felt like an idiot for even being suspicious of him. I even went through his belongings to look for a burner phone or whatever, but I again found nothing. At one point, I had actually started to believe that maybe I was just being paranoid and insecure. But the universe had my back, and the proof of his cheating was something that I saw for myself. James and I were throwing our son a pretty grand birthday party about a year ago, and he had invited the coworker he had been cheating on me with. She was a single mother with a son around my son's age, so I didn't find it strange that he had invited her. He had also told me that she was a really close friend of his, so I didn't find it unnecessary at all. After my son had cut his birthday cake, I decided to go to the upstairs bedroom because I wanted to change into something more comfortable for the party. But when I walked into my bedroom, I realized that my husband was already in there, and so was his coworker, on his lap. They were full on making out when I walked in on them, and it took me a couple of minutes to even process what I was witnessing. First of all, it was my bedroom that the two of them were going in, and that was the most horrifying part of it. Secondly, they didn't even break apart when they heard the door opening. So I had to walk all the way over to them and make my presence felt for them to snap out of it. I'm pretty sure that they thought that it would be fun to kiss in my bedroom, in my house, just for the thrill of it. But they probably didn't count on me having a complete breakdown over it. I'm not proud of it, but knowing that what I had been suspecting for so long was actually true made something snap inside of me. I grabbed the coworker by her hair and started dragging her outside the room, and I was unstoppable. From what I was told, James is considerably stronger than me, but he couldn't stop me, and I don't even remember most of it because I think I had a rage blackout. I dragged her downstairs with me, with James right behind me, and pushed her into the middle of the room while everyone was there. I don't remember most of the things that I said, but apparently, I called her a bunch of derogatory names and told everybody what she and James had been getting up to in my bedroom. I didn't even care that my son was right there, and so were a bunch of his friends. Now that I look back on it, it's extremely embarrassing and inappropriate, but at the time, that didn't even occur to me, and I was just screaming at the top of my lungs. My parents, my brother, and my in-laws were also present there, and I think it was my father who finally calmed me down and took me back to my room. Once I was inside my room, I completely broke down and started crying. I was sobbing uncontrollably, but instead of staying with me and comforting me, my dad locked me inside my room and went back out. I guess I should have known instantly that my parents didn't care about me. I had always known that they cared more about appearances than being real, but that was just insane. Nobody came to check up on me for the next couple of hours, and even after I had calmed down considerably, I had no idea what was going on outside. I didn't even have my phone, so I couldn't even ask anyone. It was only after midnight that I was escorted out of the room by my brother, who didn't even ask me how I was doing. They probably would have made me stay in the room for longer if I hadn't started banging on it like a crazy person. When I came out, I asked my brother what had happened after I had been locked in, and he told me that pretty much everyone cleared out after my breakdown. He also said that James had left with his parents and my son, and the only people in the house at the time were me, my parents, and him. He had let me out of the room so we could discuss what we were going to do about this now. But my family's idea of a discussion meant telling me that I had to apologize to all my guests for the way that I had behaved at the party.